API Resilience podcast. It's our belief that APIs are central in the changing business landscape that has been named digital transformation, and that digital transformation through APIs offers the opportunity for a dramatic shift in how companies can work together and participate in creating value. We've invited guests from many different types of organizations and asked them to share insights from their journeys and their API programs, as well as the challenges, objectives, and approaches as they endeavor to make their companies and communities more resilient.
Is there really someone investing that much time in preparation to gain that experience, or just want to go on a trip? That's what I can imagine, to make this individual part really. But just with one additional consumer, the first reuse already brings you the value. And that is something I'm trying to convince. Those guys decided to build a bathroom detection service to deprioritize pictures. And that was a really inspiring case.
Now let's listen to today's conversation. Hello and welcome to this episode of the API Resilience podcast. I'm Mark Winberry, co-host with Kristof and Tomme, and today we have a guest from TUI Travel Group, Robin Meißner. Welcome. We're very glad to have you here. And I would like to say that we're talking to Robin and his experiences will include TUI, but you shouldn't take his comments as representing the TUI group. Robin is the head of API transformation, which is part of the digital strategy leadership team. So it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast, Robin, and it's a pleasure to meet you.
Yeah, great to be here. Thank you. And a warm welcome to the whole audience.
And thank you for joining us. Like thinking about today, I was thinking back to that presentation that I saw you giving about what are APIs about? And that was, so I'm really excited about this talk. I think we can go deep, and that's the good stuff. So
actually I also took away so many things you're presenting us and brought it further. So for example, that I really like your stories about affordances. And just last week I had some experience. Now my son is 4 years old. So he's playing with that brick toys. I don't say any brands here, but, and he has always, let's say, the big bricks, which you can't really combine that much. So maybe you have this horse and that soldier, and it comes together. And now he's just at the age now going for the bricks for the big boys. So really now changing where you get really the small bricks that you can recombine. And when seeing him doing this, so he had a truck that was, before it was just 3 bricks that formed these trucks and a crane. And now this new package has hundreds. 150 maybe. And he's now even talking, when he's older, then he will start with techniques, then it's even more complicated. Yeah. And I really like this because we often talk about transformation and we often talk about those affordances, and we moved, let's say, to build modules, to have options that really form just those 3 bricks, but we don't dive deeper, or we don't change really to be adoptable and to have those 150 bricks. So I really like this. I really got this when playing with my son.
Yeah, very cool, very cool. Because I think it was similar understanding that I got from your presentation, but like it was a deeper understanding of where the whole SOA architecture was falling behind, or what was a good foresight for APIs, but where it was falling behind because it was constructed as an integration platform. Yeah, exactly like those big bricks, actually. It seems like we learned the same thing from each other's talks, which is really cool. Yeah, very, very cool. Because before that, I had not fully understood the significance of the change between APIs and SOA, because I wasn't around. Like I was still doing CMSs during the SOA age, or that was fully into Drupal specifically.
Yeah, I mean, I even had to have this learning by myself. So looking back at the beginning, and I was in that big integration middleware systems with those big CRM and finance commercial off-the-shelf systems that were integrated to each other. And it even worked quite well, let's say. So when I started, I was coming from embedded programming, and we had, let's say, most of those protocols that as a human developer you never could understand. Maybe even the vendor doesn't allow you to understand what's going over the wire. And then going for something XML-based as a lingua franca was a really big shift, and that worked quite well. We did a lot of work with generation of stub, skeleton, code generation for models even. That worked really good. And then there were people, and I remember this Dilbert, where you say, okay, soap is this. Can I please get one piece of type cake at 9 o'clock or something, or coffee? I think it was about coffee. And then the API, the RESTful approach is just get coffee. And I always remember, okay, why? That's so valuable to understand what someone wants to, what is this type of that, and why do you want to constrain yourself and just have those small information before I really get it's about the consumer experience. Yeah. So that's the real difference. So the value is on delivering, not on telling 2 hours what you might want to exchange. It's on the exchange of that information, of that piece of service.
Yeah.
And that took me really long.
I think for me, whenever I was learning about SOAP, there was an implicit promise. Well, I don't even know if it was implicit, but that WSDLs are the self-documenting for your web service. You suck in the WSDL and you have everything you need.
And it never worked because you have includements of hundreds of XML, XSD stuff.
It didn't work for a lot of reasons, but including that. But something that we've learned in the developer portal business is that the specification is not the end of the documentation. It's one aspect of it. It's an important aspect of it, and presenting it well is important. But there's a whole host of documentation that needs to go around that. And for me, that was I always felt like SOAP kind of broke a promise to me. It was the girl that never returned my call.
But I think what really struck me in so I keep talking about the presentation, and so I think I need to expand it a little bit. So I think one of the key concepts for me was this idea that APIs are built so that you would not fail. Trying to help people just to execute their task is kind of like coming to the essence of what you want to get done so that it can become more again. It's an interesting concept. I think it's essential, especially in companies like TUI that has been growing through lots of acquisitions, where you just have so much legacy software. Like we talk often when we talk to companies like TUI that have grown to acquisitions. Yeah. It's a lot about how do we become one whole again from all these little parts that we've grown from. And I think this is where the work of integration started, which was just tying everything together and making it a whole. But I think then the next step is like becoming more than an amalgamation of all these parts. And I love that also in the TUI vision, like the platform vision that I've seen that the TUI has been putting out. It's a very, very clear idea of this is how we can go beyond just being a collection of businesses. And here we can really add value and create something new that can be something much bigger than the parts that it's forming through digital transformation.
Yeah, that is quite important, I think, because just that integration piece of work or that one-to-one connection, that doesn't always allow you, or in many cases, allow you additional value just by its own. Because, I mean, you have some one-to-one connectivity and you cannot achieve this in many ways. But just with one additional consumer, so the first reuse already brings you the value. And that is something I'm trying, let's say, to talk to people and convince that it's sometimes worth to spend those 20% for a better user experience, less friction, because you will see additional partners, you will see additional situations. We have still very regional and source market specific business. So of course, we also want to build up a new integrated platform, a new central global delivery. But sometimes building that generic think machine just does not work. And why not maybe having two services for different markets? And then it's about reuse, and it's not just one-to-one integration. And coming back to that story, yeah, I think that was the most exciting and most convincing thing, talking to our former CTO and my boss, our CDO, our Chief Digital Officer, about our technology vision, our so-called ABC. So we're really focusing on using technology for our digital transformation, but it's not only about technology. And yeah, that is also a learning from the API program, that you really need to foster this vision, and you really need to think where you want to be in 5 years' time, really know where to go. And then it's easier, let's say, to take the people on that journey, because it is a difficult journey.
That's one of the consistent things that we've heard from guests on this podcast, is the importance of creating the vision and telling the story within the organization, that you have to get the organization on board and that they do it with stories, with storytelling. That's one of the reasons I like doing the podcast, because
we get to tell the stories.
We're sharing stories with people, which helps them craft their stories.
Yeah.
And that's one I think is very valuable.
And at the same time, it's about knowing where you're going, but at the same time, your destination should be a platform. It should be something that enables you rather than that constrains you.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's the really hard part. The real benefit of APIs, especially for businesses like TUI, I think, is that it enables local innovation while still reusing massively on a interregional scale. Every market, especially in Europe, I think we are blessed and cursed with the small markets.
And its expectations of our customers. Exactly.
Yes. Which means that it's much harder for rivals to enter in our markets and to be successful, because every single market is just a little bit different. And it also creates more ecosystem niches where new innovation can grow up, but at the same time, it's much harder to grow like to whale size.
Yeah, it's a kind of chicken and egg.
Yeah, and I wonder if this is going to turn into an advantage for us in the European market. Because it forces us to be more innovative, or it forces us to be more adaptive, I think, possibly, maybe. I don't know. Maybe this is a hypothesis. We should maybe check. Like, does these market niches and all these different circumstances that we need to adapt to, does that force us to build better platforms that can be better adapted to different instances, local instances? Or is it actually a hindrance? And does it take away our ability to compete? I'm wondering about that.
I mean, the question is how uniform we want to, our customers to be in the future. Because that's what you can see with the big platforms. They try to make the people less unique anymore, because they all try to get the same kind of services, which we mostly not necessarily like in Europe. Because we are quite regional. We have, let's say, maybe a very long culture and history of regional specific things. And that's sometimes quite difficult, because, I mean, we have different types of meals. We have different advantage and different, just in the travel industry, I mean, that the expectations is so different. But that's a good point. To grow this to an advantage.
Actually, this brings me to something that I've been thinking about just recently, is is what we are doing here, because APIs are born from a very strict utilitarian perspective. It's all about efficiencies and enabling of business, and it's very much focused and centered in the commercial realm and the corporate realm. But I wonder if there is also a personal realm of self-expression that is going to come at the tail end of this. Is this a new medium for personal expression also? And I wonder, because there is the power of APIs in their enablement. There is the possibility to, just like cloud computing enabled millions of small startups that could really quickly innovate and do new things that otherwise would not have been possible. Maybe there's still more that is going to come at the tail end of this.
That's quite interesting thoughts. Is this everyone becomes his own influencer, maybe? By enabling to share stories, to share home stories about the best time in your year, about your holidays, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Well, I think it's about the experiences that we can craft. Because right now, basically what we do with APIs is that we are creating building blocks that can be used to facilitate the creation of a new experience. And if you think about it, art is also about the creation of experiences. It's about triggering new insights in people and trying to transform how they think based on new innovation and new technologies that are out there. But I don't know. It's like there was this book. It was about how new technologies, new mediums always started as like a grassroots thing where, everybody, there was like some local people doing the radio thing. And this happened with the internet also. But this feels that this transformation is different because it's actually starting in the corporate world. I don't think that API started. I don't think there's examples of that in the personal world, really. So this is a different medium. Yeah, I'm very far off. The reason why I'm asking this is because actually I'm working on a presentation for DevRelCon Tokyo that I need to submit later today. And I was thinking about this, like how can you create a personal expression? One of the things that I'm really worried about is how technology is being used to take away our agency. And it's just to completely scatter our attention. It's just frightening, I think, how if you look around, like there's all these devices and they're all out for your attention.
Hyperconnectivity, but no human intervention, interaction.
There's no more time to really think or to it's just you're constantly reacting to what's happening to you. And I wonder if there's a way for technology to help with this also. Like right now, it's exacerbating the problem. But I think maybe if we would be able to create personal experiences. But the low-no-code promises this to some extent, but not necessarily.
I mean, there's a lot like this, if this, then that. I mean, but you still need to have some kind of technical background, or at least.
Yeah, and it's also utilitarian still. It's like there was the mashups almost a decade ago. There was like the wave of the mashups that were, and that was kind of interesting for a while. And there's been some artworks, you could almost say, that were like mashups, digital artworks. No, anyway, it's probably a tangent.
Honestly, I never thought about this. It's an interesting point. My feeling is, especially when it comes to something like travel, is there really someone investing that much time in preparation to gain that experience, or just want to go on a trip and have some additional experience or some additional package? So that's what I can imagine, to make this individual part, really to plan it individually, combine different locations and all that stuff. And I'm always thinking I'm a water guy, let's say. So not only going for a trip with booking a hotel or something, but maybe going there and then rent a boat in the
Yeah.
sea, and you never know when you arrive. Let's say, so maybe I will go for 2 weeks or maybe 3 weeks to have this kind of experience. I don't know,
but maybe artists don't create experiences for themselves; they create experiences for other
right.
people. Like, how could you, as an organization, how could you enable travel artists to create travel experiences that are going to be transformative and that are
that goes beyond blogging? Just
yes. Like, how can you turn it into something that, if you put all the pieces together, it transcends the combination of the parts, and it becomes something that really transforms people? Because I think people, for a big extent, or maybe not everybody, maybe people just want to have a break also, but I think some people do travel to be transformed.
Yeah.
And I think this could really well fit with you see some of this already in ecotourism and things like that. It's like one single experience and everything is built by one group of people. But maybe there's ways to create composed experiences where you combine these different parts together.
And maybe meet new persons.
Yes.
Kind of social traveling.
I wonder, that would also require a different way of looking at it. I think that's what is happening, and like this is something new since we last talked. I keep telling this story, and we had it on several of the other podcasts about a bank in Belgium, KBC. They did on their developer portal, they have business solutions and developer solutions. And developer solutions are the APIs, but the business solutions is basically building blocks that business developers can use to create experiences for other people. And this is part of this whole low-no-code movement where we're trying to democratize these abilities to tune into the digital highway system to do something. I think it would be very interesting to think about what are the business models that enables. And are there maybe like a micro business, kind of like the long tail of experience design? That's maybe a possibility as a cultural expression that could come out of this. And then also, like, what is going to be the industry that enables it? I think to some extent, this is also what one of your competitors, Airbnb, when they had, next to the lodging that they offered, that they also started offering these experiences. I've never taken any of them, so I don't know how it goes. But I know,
Me neither.
Yeah. But it's fascinating to read the stories, like truffle hunting in Tuscany, and it sounds very fascinating for if I would have a bit more time or something. But maybe if you could string things like that together into something that becomes more meaningful and that more valuable as a whole, would be interesting.
So my fear is this all is kind of subsidizing your platform business. So you're trying to move maybe consumers from one aspect of social media or something to then your new platforms by piggybacking them. I don't know if there is something really successful in a business model just by enabling this kind of personal expression. I'm not aware on it, but I really like the idea. I mean, the natural step to start with is more engaging with third parties and then engaging with typically those garage developers or startups to build better experiences. But really let your customers, your consumers develop those experiences. It's an interesting aspect.
I don't know about the business or the business model, because right now it's like we are breaking the experiences apart, because we used to have these big packages that you would buy, and then you were on for the Egypt trip, and you just followed.
You get the list of activities half a year before.
Yes,
with the time schedules. When the bus comes, I know.
And it was just really a mass-produced thing, and it feels like now it's being broken apart.
It is.
And there's big disintermediation happening. but there's always like the swing back, like how do we build it back together to create something that is going to be innovative and then also at the same time valuable from a business perspective.
And still easy consumable.
Yes.
For a user.
The danger of the breaking apart is that it becomes really hard to consume. As you said, like, is there really anybody who wants to go and do all this work planning their trip? Like it's like in Japanese manga, they often like, your first date, you have this booklet with like, first we're going to go there and then we're going to do that. And it's like, is there anybody that plans their trips? Like, no, there are people that do that, but
I know.
But I'm not that person.
Yeah. I think it's Goldilocks. It's somewhere in between. So you set the borders and you know what you want to do, let's say. So you select, and that's something I learned. We're talking about digital, but there are still many people going for the agencies, and they're really well trained by asking you 3 or 5 questions, what you would like to do. And then they find a really good matching travel experience. I mean, of course, you might codify this, but it's still something different. Going in the shop, talking to someone, and he's telling you the question, then a bot is doing the same, and you select some multi-choice answers.
Yeah.
And then there's maybe some extent, and that's, let's say, some of our stories. So then you have the package, let's say, and this you extend with some additional ancillaries. You rent maybe a car for parts of your trip, going somewhere else. Maybe you have additional visits, something completely off the record, let's say. So you have some beach holidays, but you decide to have a part cultural visiting the old cities or something. I think that is something natural that's coming to make this more individual, but not to have 1,000 choices just from the start.
Yes. This is the eternal question, because as humanity, we've been very good at standardizing stuff. So like if you look at our diet, it's like, we have potatoes. So we have a few of these staple things. Like we've got potatoes, we've got a few vegetables. Actually, we've been narrowing them down like crazy. Like we only really have like carrots and some and like cabbages. There's like, it's just one species and we have like 20 of them. So we've been very good at creating these platforms that narrow complexity and then make this fake complexity on top. And this is very similar how often, like in the fast food industry, is basically it's very, very limited number of ingredients, and then we just add some fake taste toppings to it to make it like a little bit more personal. And it feels that is, or at least for me personally, I don't like that at all. I like products that have inherent complexity, that are diverse.
It's kind of artificial if you have something like this.
And it's like in the US, and this is probably for you, Mark, the like every crossroad you'll pass the same restaurants, and it's just you land on the East Coast, it looks the same. If you land on the West Coast, like if you're, unless you go in like really outside of the big cities, there's so many things, except for in the real center where there's still some authenticity, but like the suburbs, it's all the same. Is it just me?
The folks in Jersey and the folks in California are picking up knives right now. So thank you, Kristof.
I'm sure.
So it's not waffle time.
So when you're talking about disintermediation and trying to deliver this range of experiences, 2 thoughts spring to mind for me. One is that you're always trying to add more value, and to do that, you typically are trying to go up the value chain. And so understanding your value chain is very important. And then recognizing that the people that you work with, if they're below you in the value chain, they're trying to work up into your space as well. And this is to be expected and to be anticipated and perhaps even embraced. And to me, one of the opportunities that I thought of based on what you were talking about in terms of crafting these experiences is the opportunity to, through an API program perhaps, offer the same kind of small customizations that Kristof was just kind of prodding some fun at. I would actually take a different view from you, Kristof, on that. I think that the number of choices that has been created that are real choices, there are definitely a whole host of choices that fit within your
Fake
category of fake choices of 20 cabbages. But red cabbage is different. If you look at the volume of choices and what people have to choose from in the supermarket, it's insane, the amount of choices. In everything that we do, the move from the industrial age with mass production of, Henry Ford was famous for saying, you can have any color you want so long as it's black. And, he sold Model Ts like crazy because they were all the same and it was easy to produce. And now we see people moving towards a batch size of 1 and on-demand batch size of 1. And that is possible through digital technologies, through the information systems that we use. And I think that that's a really critical thing for people to be thinking about in terms of their API programs, is you're trying to enable a batch size of 1 that's customized for an individual. And so if I think about the tours that you were talking about, the ability for maybe not TUI or Airbnb is doing it. They're not producing these individual things. They're allowing people to sell them, and the user is kind of picking them a la carte. But say, for instance, if you're running a tour bus, wouldn't it be nice if you have a niche service and you could connect with TUI and say, when this tour bus comes to town, the tourists, instead of doing the same thing on this day, they're going to scatter, and I would like to offer people this niche. And it may be one person on the bus that takes that up, but in that way you're adding value to the user, you're creating connection. And
no, that's exactly the point, especially in going forward to some multi-sided platform approach, where you both can share value, let's say by creating additional value, but shared with your partners or with, as you said, some startups, niche players. I think that is the thing that will be then beneficial, because I still believe that for some extent, people would like to have a standard approach. So they would like to know, I now have this travel and this travel company, and this is how it looks like. So of course, there are the people going with a tent and through the mountains. But there are many people that need to know, okay, that is how the buffet looks like, and that's what I get.
Mm-hmm.
And,
something you just said is, I keep saying I'm going to write about this, and I want to write about this. And that is, to me, a successful API program is created whenever new value is created that is not owned just by the API provider or the API consumer. There's value that stands in between them. It's a different kind of value than has been created in the past. It's the kind of value that cooperation enables that's different than competitive transactional value.
And you even might not know about this upfront, so it just maybe appears.
Yes.
I'm going to take it from you, Kristof, but Kristof often asks the question, have you been surprised by somebody's application of your technology through your API program? Because if people are surprising you, then they're discovering affordances and creating value and unlocking value that was previously not there. For people who are trying to get their company on board with digital transformation and funding the program, it's very easy for the C-suite to be looking for, the return on investment and, wanting some KPIs and some metrics about this. And one of those metrics could be, did someone do something that was completely unexpected and out of the box? I came from a background before Drupal and before working at Pronovix with the API programs and developer portals. I got a long history in digital mapping. And we had, at one company, we had a suite of location-based services. I was never ceased to amaze me. This was kind of during the dot-com first bubble. But the things that people would come up with to use our location services, we already had a big vision about what people, were going to do. But people started doing crazy stuff. It still inspires me today to think about the stuff that people built because they had an idea and we had APIs and they started combining them in crazy ways to do crazy things. A simple example is there was a group called Cybercrops, and Cybercrops was trying to help farmers maximize selling their crop based on travel time. So if you could get a better price for it, a little bit further away, it was worth doing. And if you got less for it locally, might be the right choice because it costs too much to transport. And so they enabled this kind of service, and it was an application that no one else was thinking of.
I can tell you a story. So what we did to try to innovate, we also have those kinds of hackathons where we gather people together, just use some of those existing stuff we had. And one of the applications, even one of those APIs and applications around it that they built up was about some image recognition. So typically, when you want to book some accommodations, you have the locations, you get pictures from the inside, from the outside, from the area, from the locations. But you have also those picture bases where those people just upload their own stuff, their own content from their own holidays. So those guys decided to build a bathroom detection service to deprioritize pictures of, let's say, not that nice looking bathrooms and hide it from the content somehow. And that was a really inspiring case for me and also for us. So we tried then to include this into our content management systems to really use some AI image recognition algorithms to find, let's say, the best pictures, or to filter and remove those that are maybe not that inspiring for travel users.
Interesting.
That is interesting.
And I think that's always the kind of stories you're looking forward to embrace, to have those killer applications you not anticipated before. So I really believe in this, and that's what we now want to try to establish, let's say, build the necessary interfaces and APIs to deal with, to play around, and open it step by step to partners or to maybe some joint venture startups to play around with it. But it's not always easy coming, let's say, from classic enterprises to establish this kind of thinking, of course, because it's all about protecting the brand and avoiding risks. But innovation and disruption is also a little bit about taking some risks. And
I think that probably actually one of the biggest values that you add on top of the services that are flowing through your network is the brand value. Is this experience up to the TUI standards? And are we comfortable selling this on our network? What can people expect when they choose to take this experience? Probably that's exactly one of the key things. Yeah. I'm going to think more about personal travel experiences, and maybe that can be like one of our 2 episodes then if we break this one up. But I would also love to hear a little bit more about the transformation story at TUI.
We had much more to talk to Robin about than we had time for in one episode, so we're splitting the episodes into 2 parts. Please stay tuned for our next episode with Robin Meißner from TUI Group. He's going to get into more of the management of an API program in the next episode. It's our hope that you're encouraged by today's story and picked up some insights that will help you navigate your digital transformation and make your API program more successful. If you have questions or feedback on the podcast, we invite you to email us at info@pronovix.com. Thanks for listening.